Good evening and welcome. I'm Sheila Balgobin, and I am the Dream Decipherer, and I help you to crack the code of your sleeping dreams so you can sleep sound and dream deep. This evening, families seem to be the theme here, with family affairs, both legal and possibly illegal, going on. So let's find out what's happening. There's three short dreams. Um, the first dream, the dreamer reports that he had dreamt that a loved one was in the hospital, and he says, weren't sure whether she would make it or not. The she is unidentified. The dreamer reports being at church with his son and dad, and the granddad, the dreamer's dad, said something about making arrangements that indicated to the grandson just how serious matters actually were. And the dream ends there. The second dream, the dreamer reports that the dreamer was involved in running a large family business, which was a community football club or soccer club. And as the club had become increasingly successful as it moved up the leagues, the finances became more complicated, and pressure from less ethical investors who were partners were creating a problem. The dreamer also reports that the dreamer's mother had recently died, and she had been involved in the business, and it was exactly around the time of her death that this hostile takeover of the community club began to occur. The dreamer wasn't happy about the way things were going, and had to choose whether it was wiser to stand and fight, or to accept what may very well have been an inevitable um, change in terms of the unethical investors getting a hold of the company. And in the end, they would prevail. And the dream ends there. The final dream, the dreamer reports that he was visiting a friend who was out in India or Sri Lanka, not sure which, and the friend's son was running a successful events company, but because of government concerns, there was a possibility that the company would be shut down because they were suspicious of illegal drug use, it being in connection with Western style type of events, and companies like this gentleman's son. And the dream ends there. So, what exactly is going on with these three dreams, and how are they tied together? Well, we'll start one by one, go through them, and see what happens. The first thing I have to say is that we always have to remember that the people who appear in our dreams are not necessarily themselves. Dreams come from us and are about us, and therefore, the whatever is coming up, there's something perhaps that has been clothed in the guise of this person or that person, and it you have to find out what the connection actually is. But my first question with the first dream, was who exactly is she? The she is in hospital, but she's not named. We don't know, and as my mother always said, she is the cat. So who is this person? Does the dreamer know who this person is? Is there a parallel in waking life where someone may actually be ill? Sometimes dreams can be expressing our well, not sometimes, but we'll be expressing our anxieties and fears that we're not voicing or vocalizing during our waking hours that come up at night. But in any case, what does this person, whoever she may be, represent? What about this person resonates with the dreamer? The other thing is, the other question I have here is, the dreamer found himself with his father and son in a church. Were they there for a church service? Were they there simply just to say a prayer for this person who was ill? What was the connection between the first statement that there was somebody in hospital that was ill, and then the next statement that you were sitting in church? Um, I assume, maybe incorrectly, that had gone there to pray for this person. But in any case, what does this going to a church or being in a church represent for the dreamer? What resonates for the dreamer there? Now, the final statement, there's almost a progression going on here. I mean, you're saying that somebody is very ill, not sure they would make it. Then the dreamer is in church, and then the dreamer's father, the granddad, says something about making arrangements that clues the child in about how serious matters actually were. And my question here is that, wasn't the child kept abreast in a way that the child can understand of what was going on? My concern, well, not concern, but my question here is that, was there for some reason the person's condition being hidden from the child? And how does a dreamer feel about that? Kind of concealing information and almost shocking them by saying, well, we need to start making some arrangements for something. Um, and there's something about that with people in the Western world are very freaky about death. It's like this dirty secret that people shouldn't talk about, and it's actually, it should be talked about, because it's gonna happen to everybody one day, and to it's unrealistic to expect even children not to be aware of it, especially when people cringe and whisper in corners about it. So, um, I wonder if there is an episode or in waking life where a child may not be being told, of a grave illness of a relative, a parent, or whoever, sibling, whatever it is. So I put that out there to as a question, if there's somewhere in waking life where this may be occurring. And now, moving on to the second dream, the dreamer reports that he was involved in running a family business. My first question here was, well, what kind of business was it? And then but a community football club. So, which I'm assuming is it, since it was going up the leagues, that it started from a non-league club and made its way, up the ladder, so to speak. Is there anything similar to that in waking life, where not necessarily a family business, but, a community of sorts that is like a family for the dreamer? Is there some kind of issue around that? This The other thing about this community football club or soccer club is that for some people, the fans, that uh, football is a religion. It really is. So we come back to, in a sense, to a religious sort of quasi-religious theme here, with the football club. I mean, people can be absolutely rabid about their teams, and so it, has a strong or even stronger pull than that of the church. Uh, there also the mother's recent death in this dream. Is the mother the she referred to in dream one? Um, it's interesting that she's not named in the first dream, if that is the case that we're talking about her, but yet in the second dream, where there's a we find out who the she actually was. Is um is there somewhere in the life of the dreamer where there's this actual situation that's going on, where there may be an impending a serious illness or even impending death? um, Again, this may be bringing up the unexpressed anxieties of the dreamer that don't get aired during the daylight hours. The the death of his mother in the dream coincided with uh, increasing financial difficulties and on this company or a community organization, along with increased pressure from unethical investors who were trying to take over the business in a hostile takeover. Now, what I mean, when you say unethical, what was unethical? What were they trying to do? Were they trying to, in a sense, wrest the power out of the hands of the community and put it in their own hands for the whatever purposes, probably to earn more money? Um, but where in the dreamer's life does it feel like he may be being taken over by some hostile party or hostile parties? There may be disguised here as company raiders or company breakers, as the case may be. But where are their corporate raiders, so to speak, in the dreamer's waking life? And the dreamer expresses uncertainty and doubt as to whether it was best to stand and fight for what had been in essence his mother's legacy, or accept that it was inevitable that these corporate sharks were going to manage to succeed and take over the company. How does that feel to the dreamer, that unscrupulous people may take over something that was good and honest and belonged to a community, for selfish gain or some other purpose that probably wouldn't have suited the community that it was built to serve? How does it make the dreamer feel to be in a sense at a crossroads? Do I go left? Do I go right? Do I stand and fight and maybe go down, or do I just throw my hands up and say, I'm not going to win. I'm not even going to try, and walk away? How does that feel? Is there any place in the dreamer's waking life where it's a kind of zero sum game? It's either I win or I lose. Could there possibly be another way to look at that situation? Finally, we move to the third dream, and the dreamer is visiting somewhere in Asia, looks on the subcontinent, either India or perhaps Sri Lanka. Um, which was it? Was there any clues as to which it was? And in any case, what does either one of them represent for the dreamer? The dreamer reports that the son of the friend that he went to visit had an events management company, but was starting to have financial trouble and may not even survive because the government was suspicious of these Western style type of companies, and that they would be in some kind of infiltration or influx of drug activity and drugs themselves and drug activity as a result of these events, and these types of companies. Now, it there's something about a sickness, in a sense, that we're talking about here, another kind of illness or sickness, or being infected by parties from the outside. And it's interesting that there's this huge battle going on. It's like, do everybody point their finger at China as being the originator of COVID? It's, everything seems to come from there, and so there's a lot of that going on. And though the dreamer hasn't actually mentioned China in this, but what strikes me about this is that this shutdown of Western style types of companies kind of is reminiscent of what it happens um, with foreign companies in China. So I mean, it's my question here for the dreamer in terms of the dreamer's life is, where does the dreamer feel that Big Brother is shutting things down or shutting the people down? um, certainly with regard to COVID, there has been a lot of pushback from people about restrictions and shutting down and going in and out of lockdown. I mean, it's completely insane. But are there other areas, and we're all suffering from that, but are there other areas on a more personal level where the dreamer feels like this is happening, that there's um, we're being infected in a sense by this, that, or the other, depending on who you're talking to and what you're talking about. The government here is acting like an Uber parent, telling everyone what they can and can't do, and when they can do it and how they can do it. This that it strikes me that we had in the second dream, we had unscrupulous investors, and and so they were being shut down, and again, due um well, I mean, not being shut down by governments, but being someone trying to shut them down for their illegal activities. Where, and in here in the third dream, you have the same thing, but it's the government that's actually doing it rather than individuals. But this unscrupulous behavior, whether real or imagined, what does that represent to the dreamer? What are the wider implications of this infection of Western culture and behavior in terms of um, relationships on the broader scale? So there's a bit of the micro world of the dreamer on the one hand, it seems, as well as the um, bleeding in of the wider questions that are kind of floating around for all of us. But what exactly links these three dreams? Well, there are three. The first thing is that three, the number three, actually links the three dreams. There are three, a triangle of sorts in each of these dreams. In the first dream, it's the dreamer and the dreamer's father and son. That's one trio there. In the second dream, you have the dreamer, you have the deceased mother, and you have the unethical investors. So another trio or triangle there. Then in the third dream, again, you have three people. You have the dreamer, you have his friend, and the friend's son. So there's then, being that we've just passed the Easter season, and unless you're celebrating in the Eastern calendar, so you may not have had Easter yet, but the Holy Trinity, we just, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. So there's a bit of perhaps moral authority being called into question here, a higher authority, so to speak. We even have a Judas in the form of the unethical investors, or possibly the flip flopping government. So there's illegality that is either real or imagined, or at least implied here. But what really ties all three of these dreams is a loss of hope. A loss of hope in an impending loss of a loved one, impending loss or almost certain loss of a business, and a certain loss of being having of freedom and having the ability to run your own business, because the government says, you're subversive, we don't want you running your, having a business like that. So they're all of them seem to have a somewhat bleak view of the future. That things are not going to turn out well. And I would ask the dreamer at this point, is there somewhere in the dreamer's life, I mean, COVID aside, are there areas or an area of the dreamer's life where it feels as if it's just hopeless, that there's just no way forward, that you're just stuck, or marching towards an inevitable end that's undesirable? And maybe it's time to step back and think about that. Where in your life that feels like that? So there you have it. Family affairs of various kinds, some legal, some may not be legal. And but always, it's important to remember that the people in our dreams are not necessarily themselves. Thanks so much for watching and listening. And if you have a dream that you've really got you scratching your head, or has been dogging you for like many years, do get in contact and have a chat. It's free, and you get some clues as to how to look at your dreams. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Have a great evening and rest of the week, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.